The boogeyman lives in the sky, and he comes down in the night to talk to me, said Michael. He comes to ask me a bunch of questions. I laughed. What kind of questions could the boogeyman have to ask a 9-year-old? It was the middle of the afternoon, and it was my last session for the day. Being a child therapist is a strange job. Kids see things differently than adults. They interpret things differently. They say and do things that adults would consider dark or inappropriate. I had a child in my office once who told me that he would very much enjoy it if his entire family died in a fire. When I asked him why he would enjoy that, he explained that his parents would yell at him sometimes when his sister lied about him being mean to her, and that if they all died, he wouldn't get in trouble anymore. Some parents perceive thoughts like this to be troublesome, and in extreme cases indicative of some sort of early psychosis. The truth is that kids simply don't understand the implications of what they say sometimes. So when Michael tells me that the boogeyman lives in the sky, I try to interpolate what a child could mean by that. Does the boogeyman come in through your window? I ask, fearing some type of home invasion by a predator. No, he just comes. I don't know how, replied Michael, busying himself with a Hot Wheels track that I had set up. What does the boogeyman talk to you about? I asked, trying to probe deeper. Michael screws up his face and tosses his head from side to side, like a puppy who has seen something that he doesn't understand. I don't know. Lots of stuff, I guess. Like how old my sister is, or what kind of food I eat, or why I get sick sometimes, or why I have so many toes. I laugh again, trying to keep the mood in the room light and playful. The boogeyman doesn't sound all that scary. Why do you call him the boogeyman? I ask as I pick up a mustard yellow plastic hot rod and begin to hand drive it up and down the leg of the nearby table. Because he's scary sometimes, Michael says, and then pauses in his attempts to get the little battery-powered boosters on the track to work, and his face gets a little pale. He gets mad if I don't know the answers, and he gets scary. I notice his eyes start to tear up a little bit. Again, children interpret things differently than adults, and often most emotions manifest as tears in children. If a child is angry, they might cry. If they feel frustrated, anxious, nervous, excited, or even bored, they might cry. Children often have a hard time expressing why they cry, and the adults around them have a hard time understanding why they might be crying. But it is very, very easy to understand the tears coming out of Michael's eyes now. They were tears born of fear. A deep, primal fear. A fear of immense and inevitable pain. Like someone who can see that they are going to fall from a high place, and have realized that they can do nothing about it, but brace for the impact on the ground below. Michael, how does the boogeyman get scary? I asked, setting down the plastic car and focusing in on him. What does the boogeyman do if you don't know the answers? Michael looked up at me, his tears flowing hot and fast from his eyes. He takes me to his house in the sky and hurts me, he sobbed. He hurts me, but I can't move. He hurts me, but I can't run away or scream or anything, he says. And then even more quietly, he'll hurt me for telling you. I pull him into a hug and I tell him, I promise I won't let that happen to you. No one is going to hurt you tonight. At this point, I am convinced that there is some form of abuse going on in the home. Michael is a bedwetter and struggled with a slight stutter until about a year ago. He expresses extreme uncomfortability when touched. He often is a quiet boy, but acts out with extreme violence when provoked. Anyone who has ever worked with children who had suffered abuse will tell you that these are the textbook symptoms. I only need one more indicator to be absolutely sure and call CPS. Michael, how does the boogeyman hurt you? Does he hit you? I was not prepared for Michael's response. No, he takes his needles and he pokes me all over. Or sometimes he'll cut me to see what's under my skin. At this point, my own eyes start to tear up, and I steel myself pushing on. Can I see where he hurts you? I ask shakily. Michael lifts his small shirt up, and immediately the scars are apparent. They look like brands. The skin is an angry, puckered red, with yellow-brown scabs forming over them. I begin to feel sick, and I can feel the bile in my throat. I notice there is a pattern to them, almost like letters in a language that I don't think I've ever seen. The age of the wounds range from thin white line scars that are years old to freshly scabbed over. Michael comes home with me that evening until CPS can perform an investigation the following morning. On the way back to my home, I look at Michael in the rearview mirror and expect him to be sad, but instead he looks almost apathetic. Don't worry, kiddo. The boogeyman won't bother you at my house, I said and smiled at him. He'll still come. He always comes even when I had a sleepover at my friend James's house, he said sullenly. I smiled knowing both parents were in custody for the night, after showing the police the injuries on Michael's torso. Not this time, kiddo. The police put the boogeyman in jail, I said, trying to assuage his fears. No one is gonna come hurt you tonight. After a quick dinner of spaghetti and garlic bread that I had made for the two of us, I show Michael to the guest room and give him one of these super XXL shirts that I usually sleep in, and apologize for not having any pajamas in his size, and that we can pick them up from his house tomorrow. He gets changed and I tuck him in. Sleep tight, kiddo. You've got a big day tomorrow. We've got to get all of your clothes so you can stay with your Aunt Nancy for a little while, I said, brushing his hair back from his forehead, trying to comfort him. He looked at me and started crying again, his tears of fear, the tears of a broken spirit. I don't want the boogeyman to hurt you. I like you, he said between sobs, and his genuine fear gave me chills. That nasty little boogeyman isn't going to hurt me, and even if he comes, I'll punch him right in the face, I said, holding up and shaking my fist as if to emphasize my deadly punching ability. You can't hurt him. He's too big, he said, and it occurred to me that I had no idea what this child imagined his abuser to look like. I should have left it alone. I should have just assured him again that my fists were deadly weapons, But instead, without thinking, I asked, "Oh yeah, what does this wimpy boogeyman even look like?" Michael shook his head violently and shut his eyes. "I'm not supposed to tell anyone," he said, tears still leaking from his shut eyes. I reached into the bedside table and pulled out a notepad and a pencil. "Okay, you don't have to tell me, but can you draw it?" I asked. He looked down at the paper cautiously. "How am I supposed to beat him up if I don't even know what he looks like?" I explained, and Michael finally slowly nodded. I guess I should have expected it, but he drew a stick figure. I wasn't quite sure what else I was expecting. I relaxed and figured I'd use this opportunity to make him relax a little more. "Okay, now draw me punching him," I said, smiling, trying to make him believe that I would protect him. He did draw me punching the boogeyman, but he was a much better artist than I gave him credit for initially. His artistic representation of me was not a stick figure. It was also significantly shorter than the boogeyman. "Wow, you're really good," I said. "But how come you drew me really good, but you made the boogeyman a stick figure?" I asked, turning my head to the side to look at him. "That's what he looks like," he whispered, as if someone was listening and might overhear. I could see he wanted to continue. He wanted to tell me. So I leaned in closer and I put my ear to his mouth. "He's tall and really, really skinny, like a skeleton. But he's got skin and stuff except it's all smooth and gray, like wet cement," he said, barely audible. "He's only got 3 toes, but 6 fingers. And he's got really big black eyes and a really big head." I looked down at the drawing again and looked a bit harder at it this time. No, that's crazy. The kid saw one too many episodes of X-Files and was projecting his fear into some sort of imaginary avatar. He's got a lot of teeth, like 3 rows like a shark. Some are flat like ours, but the back ones are sharp like a shark's too, he said, starting to cry once more. I gave his chest a pat. "The boogeyman isn't going to hurt you tonight, I promise," I said, standing up and moving towards the door. "I'll leave the light on for you. Try and get some sleep, bud." I said and I walked to my room. I set the drawing of me punching the boogeyman down at the foot of my bed and went into the bathroom to change and brush my teeth for bed. After cleaning my teeth and washing my face, I changed into a t-shirt the size of a parachute and crawled into bed, unable to relax. Tall and thin, gray skin, huge black eyes. No way. He had to have seen an episode of some late-night History Channel show. I convinced myself enough to fall asleep, though I was trying desperately not to think of 3 rows of teeth. Eventually, my consciousness faded to black and I fell away into sleep. Something woke me up in the middle of the night. I lay with my eyes closed, straining my ears for any sounds, any hint of someone or something else in the room with me. I heard nothing but the drone of silence. I opened my eyes to the pitch blackness of my room and simply stared at the ceiling, too afraid to look around the room. I saw something, a shadow in the room in my periphery, a phantom at the foot of my bed. I realized that I wasn't laying perfectly still because I was afraid. I realized that I could not move even if I had wanted to. I started to cry. Those same tears Michael had. Tears of pain and fear. The tears of someone who knows they are about to suffer a horrible fate, and also knows that there is nothing they can do about it. The comforter slips from my feet, and is slowly folded upwards, exposing my legs. I whimper as I hear a voice echo in my head.
Why do you have so many toes